Have you ever had one of those light bulb moments at work? A brilliant idea for how to make things better, only to watch it just fizzle out? Well, you're not alone. Making real, lasting change happen is one of the toughest things to do. So in this explainer, we're going to map out the entire journey of a change agent. And yep, that means your journey. All right, let's jump in.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? Every organization has to adapt to survive, and they need creative change to grow and thrive. But that whole process, moving from the comfortable what is to a totally unknown what could be, man, it almost always runs into some kind of friction. It's this constant tension, and learning how to navigate it is exactly what we're here to do today.
So who's the hero of our story? It's the change agent. And I really want you to start seeing yourself in this role. See, being a change agent has nothing to do with your job title or where you sit on an org chart. It is all about action. It's anyone who sees a problem or an opportunity and says, you know what, we can do better, and then actually works to make it happen.
You know, a lot of people think that big, important changes only come from the top down, from the C-suite, but that's just not how it works most of the time. So often, the most powerful and effective changes start on the front lines, with the people who are closest to the action. A perfect example of this is when the Institute of Medicine put out a call for nurses to step up and lead a radical transformation in healthcare.
I mean, just look at what the IOM was asking for here. This wasn't about small tweaks. They were calling for nurses to become full partners, to be leaders in completely redesigning the entire health system from the ground up. This is a massive, high-stakes call to change, and it demands that every single nurse sees themselves as a potential change agent.
Okay, so you've answered the call. You're ready to make a change. What's next? Well, before you start any journey, you need a map, right? So we're going to look at a few foundational theories about change. And don't worry, these aren't just dry academic exercises from a textbook. Think of them as practical maps, like a GPS for navigating the complex human landscape inside any organization.
And the best place to start, the most intuitive map of them all, is Kurt Lewin's force field model. It's a brilliantly simple tool for visualizing all the invisible forces that are pushing for and against you during any change initiative.
Think of it like a giant game of tug-of-war. On one side of the rope, you have your driving forces. These are things pushing you toward the change, maybe a financial crisis, a new boss, or just a smarter way to work. But on the other side, you have the restraining forces, pulling you right back to the status quo. That's things like fear, old habits, or resistance from people who've been there forever. Real change only happens when you can shift that balance of power. So how do you actually shift that balance? Well, Lewin gives us this amazing three-step process. First, you have to unfreeze the current situation. This means you got to kind of shake things up, make people a little uncomfortable with how things are now. You show them the data, you point out the problems, you essentially thaw out those frozen, old attitudes. Then you move to the new way of doing things. And finally, and this part is absolutely crucial, you refreeze that change, making it the new stable normal so that the system doesn't just slide back to its old ways. Now, Lewin's model is a fantastic starting point, but it's not the only route on our map. You've also got people like Rogers, who focused on how people adopt new ideas, the innovators versus the laggards. And Cotter, who lays out an 8-step process for huge organizational changes. The paths might look a little different, but they're all trying to get you to the same destination: successful, lasting change. Okay, we've looked at the theoretical maps. Enough theory, now let's get super practical with a step-by-step guide that you can literally use for any change you want to make, big or small.
This 7-step path is your playbook. Seriously, it all starts with just identifying the issue. Then you go out and collect the real data. From there, you analyze it, you develop a solid plan, and this is a big one. You figure out who's on your side and who might push back. Then you implement the plan, and just like with Lewin's model, you stabilize it to make it stick. There's a great example of surgery center nurses who used this exact process and ended up cutting duplicate lab tests by 90%. It just shows how a clear process can turn a good idea into an amazing reality.
So, having a path is essential, but how you lead people down that path matters just as much, if not more. You've got to choose your leadership strategy based on the situation, and there are really 3 main approaches you can take. Here's the quick breakdown. First, you've got the power coercive strategy. That's using authority. It's the do this because I'm the boss approach. Then there's the empirical rational strategy, which is all about logic and data, assuming everyone will just do the smart thing. And finally, you have the normative re-educative strategy, which focuses on culture and relationships. And honestly, for complex problems, that third one is often your most powerful tool. So the normative re-educative strategy is all about collaboration. It's built on shared values and relationships. It operates on the assumption that we're social creatures, influenced by the culture around us. Its power doesn't come from authority or data. It comes from working together. By getting people involved from the very beginning, you tap into their collective creativity, and you pretty much dissolve resistance before it even starts. The only real drawback? It takes time. You have to be patient.
All right, no matter which path you take or what strategy you use, you are eventually going to come face to face with the dragon of every change journey, human resistance. But here's the secret. Resistance isn't the villain of our story. It's a natural, totally expected part of the process that you have to understand, not just try to defeat.
I bet you've heard some of these before. In fact, let's be honest, you've probably even said a few of them yourself. I know I have.
We tried that before. It won't work. But we've always done it this way. We can't afford it. We just don't have the time. And oh, my personal favorite, let's start a task force to look at it, which is basically code for let's send this idea off to a committee to die a slow death. Just recognizing these phrases is the first step. And hey, quick tip. Next time someone says, we tried that before, just ask them, okay, great. What was different then, and what can we learn from it? All of a sudden, a roadblock becomes a data point.
And this is so important. Please don't see resistance as just a negative thing. It's actually a stimulant. It forces you, the change agent, to be crystal clear about your vision. It shines a spotlight on potential problems you might have totally missed. When you handle it the right way, resistance actually makes your final change even stronger.
Okay, you've mapped out the journey, you've led people down the path, you've met the dragon of resistance, and you've implemented the change. The journey's over, right? Not quite. The final, and maybe the most important stage of all, is making sure all that hard work actually sticks.
And this brings us right back home to Lewin's model. This is the refreezing stage. You have to stabilize the new way of doing things. You reinforce the new behaviors with tons of positive feedback, you share the wins, and you weave the change into the very fabric of the organization's culture until it just becomes the new way we do things around here.
Throughout this whole journey, you're the guide. And these are the characteristics you can build to become a really effective one. It's about connecting dots that other people don't see. It's about being an energizer for your team. It's about being flexible when you need to be, but persistent when it counts. And above all, it's about building trust and articulating a vision so clearly that people can't help but want to come along.
So, we've walked through the maps, the steps, the strategies. We've seen that anyone, absolutely anyone, can be a change agent. So the only real question left is the one right here on the screen. Looking at your world, at your work, at your community, what change will you lead?